A professional counselor in the Dallas area is growing in popularity for his treatment methods.
Rusty Lozano is the founder of the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He's also been nationally recognized for his work with brain mapping.
Rusty Lozano, a father of 4 and also a professional counselor in Texas, says it's all about being a credible resource to your children.
The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano. Your dedicated resource for mental health news, views, and tips you can use. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas. And now, here's Rusty.
And good afternoon. Welcome to the Therapy Hour. I'm your host, Rusty Lozano. And you are tuning in to KFXR Talk Radio 1190. Boy, do we have a good topic today. I have 3 girls in my household, and I'm coming across information, and I'm learning more as I watch the news, and I'm learning about the trend with young girls and even my own son with the things that are happening out there, the news and these sexting allegations and sexual misconduct, and it seems like there's a lot going on circulating around this topic. So the topic of sexting, what is it? What do we do about it? How much do we know? This becomes an essential tool for parents to understand and really really start to get ahead of the trend because we never know what our kids actually know. It's interesting, my own son, I've asked him questions about, when there's been random things happen like terror attacks, like, what do you know about what's happening? And the things that he can explain to me, I'm like, wow, where did he get that information from? Because I didn't tell him. But let's talk a little bit about this topic of sexting. What is it? I'm going to give you a brief description, and then I'm going to introduce my guest today. But sexting is sending, receiving, or forwarding sexually explicit messages, photographs, or images, primarily between mobile phones. It also includes the use of computer or any digital device. The term was first popularized in the early 21st century and is an impromptu of sex and texting, where the latter is meant to more in the wide sense of sending a text, possibly, with images. In 2012, the word sexting was listed for the first time in the Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. So it is a very widely used terminology now. But here to talk to us more about this is Dr. Susan Istre. She's the director of the Center for Social Success in Dallas, and she has been visiting private schools and churches and around the Metroplex with this message on sexting. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rusty. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, thank you for being here. When I first started learning about the information that was coming out with your statistics, it was really intrigued, and it scared me. I was actually just finding myself wondering, well, what else do I not know about what's happening with our kids these days? But can you shed a little bit of light on this topic of sexting? Let's first talk about, maybe introduce the topic in with your terminologies and see where we go from there.
Sure. Well, you are absolutely right in the definitions that you cited. I think what's important to know is that in Texas, it's not just sending or receiving or forwarding explicit messages or photos, but it's through any electronic means, which includes the computers and other digital devices. Texas law targets the people who create it, which might, be the girl who takes a picture of herself, who sends it, which again could be the girl, or it might be kept by a boy that she sends it to and then forwarded to other people. So everyone in that chain of events is considered to be culpable as participating in sexting and is subject to the penalties in regard to that.
Yeah, as you talk about that, I think primarily about females. But is it really, it involves more than females. It's our males as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but when you think about it, girls don't really ask boys for pictures of their genitals or body parts. Boys are more typically asking for pictures, and girls are more typically sending it. That's not to say that some boys don't take pictures of themselves and send it on to girls, but the vast majority of sexting photos that we're talking about are of girls.
And it's usually a request done by boys and girls.
Generally, but girls have and do send it without being asked. And when I was talking to a private school recently to some 8th grade boys, they complained that they felt like boys were taking the rap for sexting when sometimes they get photos unsolicited from girls. So I know that does happen, but I think truly in the majority of cases, the boy is asking for a picture and the girls send it.
You think it has anything to do with boys being more in a hormonal stage at this point in their life? They're young teenagers, and there's maybe some natural inclination to have sensations or impulses.
Oh, of course it is. Sure. I mean, this is not the first time that kids have done something to learn more about sex or participate in that process. It's as old as time. I mean, it just used to be that kids might come across a Playboy magazine, and that would be their source of information, or they'd tear out a picture and show it to other people. Now it's digital, and so it's far easier to access. Porn is so easy to access, and when boys are sent these pictures, one of the mistakes they then make is to keep it on their phone, and that means that they are storing child pornography. And then if they send it on, they're guilty at another level
of distributing child pornography.
Distributing it, yes.
And there's been a recent change in laws that this is actually now a criminal. It's actually a criminal offense.
Well, it's always been a criminal offense, underage child pornography. But in 2016, Texas passed a law to change our consequence from being a felony for sexting to be a misdemeanor, knowing that it's children who so often are participating in this and not wanting to have to impose the harsh penalties on them that an adult would appropriately have if they were engaging in pornography with children. So that Texas is only one of 20 states that has done that. In other states, it is a felony, and you can not only have jail time, prison time, but be put on a lifetime offender list.
Oh my gosh, that's a major pitfall for these kids to really encounter, and a lot of them probably don't even know that.
Oh, they have no idea.
And is anybody really asking the questions like, what would happen if I did do this?
Not until they learn that that's a possibility. Then they're asking a lot of questions. And then they're in trouble.
And then what's going to happen?
That's
and they start discovering what's to come down the pike.
Absolutely. At a private school that I recently spoke to, in their middle school, 70% of the kids thought no one in their class had sexted. I mean, they were very naive about that, and a large majority of them didn't even realize that there were laws against
Oh my
that.
gosh. Yeah, that's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. It's scary what kids major. Don't know.
It really is. Mm-hmm. And parents as well, because I as a parent, honestly, I didn't know any of this until I started reading more about this topic.
And well, here's the sad thing. I do a lot of educational talks in the area of counseling, and generally when I do that, I will sit down and Google what's happening and see what I can find out from the larger population. When I Google bullying or other anxiety or depression or other topics that I talk about, I get a lot of good, clinical insights. When I Googled sexting, I got a lot of how-tos. Oh. That's what comes up. 50 sample sexting ideas you can use right now. 87 examples to turn a guy on by text. 25 spicy texts to send that will get him horny.
Oh, my gosh.
This is what you get when you Google sexting. So it's
an instruction manual. And essentially these kids that don't know and maybe want to send a message of interest.
Right.
Well, what can I do? And let me get some ideas. And they may run across information like this.
Exactly. When I did a survey at one of the private schools, asking kids why they do it, the number one reason that they cited was that kids are curious. The number two reason was that they think it's fun and flirty. The third reason was it makes guys or girls like you more, and that statistic it was shared by the third position of kids feel pressure and insecure. The fourth reason was that you can find out if others think you're hot. And so kids are engaging in this behavior for the reasons that kids have always engaged in this behavior, to kind of check their status with others, to do something they think will help them to be more popular, to be viewed as hot.
And the scary thing is that they're already using these platforms, so it's just an addendum of what they already know how to do.
Oh, that's absolutely right. It's all the social media platforms that kids use. And in our survey of children at one of the private schools, 61% of the kids in middle school owned a cell phone, 36% owned both a cell phone and an iPad, and only 2% of kids own neither. So kids already have the tool in their hand to be able to engage in this behavior, and it's through the social media platforms. So if you have Facebook, or if you have Instagram, or if you have Snapchat or Tinder, or some of these social media platforms, then you have a built-in way to start engaging in sexting.
Yeah, and in a variety of ways. So it's
Yes.
not just in one platform, but there's several.
Oh, that's right. In fact, there's an app called Kick, which you may be aware of, that is actually pretty synonymous with sexting. When somebody says, "Do you want to kick?" it means, "Do you want to have sex, or do you want to sext?"
Oh my gosh! So there's actually code
Yes.
word language.
Oh, there's always been teen secret language that we don't understand.
So now we need a new dictionary to even keep up.
Yeah.
And there is actually such thing as an urban dictionary that's actually floating around. We're going to take a quick break. We're visiting with Dr. Istre on sexting, and more from her as soon as we come back.
How do you know what is fact versus opinion with all the fake news these days? You go to Talk Radio 1190 and tune in to the new show, Chasing the Truth, every Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. They'd even like for you to be part of the show. How? Just listen to the topics about politics, sports, economy, and current events. Call in and give them your opinion. But warning, you must have facts to back up your opinion, or you'll be booted off the air. Chasing the Truth every Friday from 3 to 5. Great new show with a great new format that's sure to raise some eyebrows.
Did you know that over 90% of male enhancement pills are virtually the same thing that's repackaged, redone over and over again? Why settle for the same old product when you can get something completely different? Something that takes male enhancement into the 21st century. Something that really works. Men, you need to try Noxitril, the explosive, all-natural male enhancement formula that will unlock your performance in the bedroom to a level you could only dream of. Try to imagine Viagra on steroids. Noxitril is so powerful, that's why it took years for it to finally become available to the public without a prescription. So call now and take advantage of our special Noxitril free bottle offer today. Oh yeah, we recommend that you use the Noxitril dose as directed. Think of your partner. We certainly don't want you to overperform in the bedroom.
Call now and find out how to get a free bottle of Noxitril while supplies last. Call 1-800-993-0840. Free bottles for a limited time, so call now. 800-993-0840. 800-993-0840.
Hey there.
What's up, bruh?
Hello.
Aloha.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Hola.
Hi.
It takes a lot of voices to create the sound of us. The Y welcomes all of them with open arms. From career readiness to safe spaces, the Y is there, no matter who we are. Now, more than ever, they need your support. Donate to your local Y today. The Y, for a better us.
Read by members of the Y.
A world of Christmas wonder awaits at Enchant. Surround yourself with millions of dazzling lights, a Christmas market, the world's largest light maze, an ice skating pond, and more at Enchant. Pick your general admission or VIP tickets today at enchantchristmas.com.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hello, we are back from the break. If you're just joining us, we are visiting with Dr. Istre from the Center for Social Success in Dallas, Texas, and we're discussing the topic of sexting, especially among our kids, and that's what we've been talking about. And it's sad. I mean, it's hard and it's sad. It's a natural thing that there's curiosity in relationships, but how they're going about it is very difficult. It's really difficult to hear and see them trying to maneuver through without some inside information. So before the break, we were actually talking about a pretty good description of sexting. And what I would like to get into with this segment, Dr. Istre, is how prevalent sexting is.
Sure. Well, we know it's happening more and more, but the statistics that you see will vary depending upon the age of the child that or teen that was focused on and how the study was done. One of the best studies that I've seen recently was from the Cyberbullying Research Center in 2017, this year, and they broke down sexting by gender and age. So they have from 12 to 17 years old how the percentages increase, and for 12-year-old boys, about 6% are thought to sex. For 13-year-olds, 9%. For 14-year-olds, 11%. 15-year-olds, 14%. 16-year-olds, 15%. And 17-year-olds, 19%. So you see it's going up every year. It starts at about 6% in sixth grade, and then by the time you're a junior in high school, it's up to almost 20%. The statistics for girls are even a little higher than that. They start out at 9% instead of 6% at 12 years old, and they go up to 26%, according to this study. Another interesting thing was the Drexel University study that was done a couple years ago, and they identified that 54% of kids participated in sexting in high school, and that was by asking college students, retrospectively, did you do this? So there wasn't any concern about something that you did when you were a younger kid. Whereas, you can ask a younger kid now and they might say no, but not be telling the truth. So I think that asking college kids to look back on their time as teenagers might even be a more accurate way to approach that. And over half of the kids said
that's
that
staggering. I mean,
did this.
This is something they're looking back on, and how could you get those statistics on something that's occurring now? Who's going to admit it?
Right.
First of all, you may be afraid of getting in trouble.
Exactly.
And then, okay, well then, what if there are repercussions? Or what if I do have a collection of these pictures, and if I say anything, okay, they're going to start snooping on my phone, and I'll lose this collection. So there's a lot of things that I think that are in the way of getting accurate information now. But what we're learning from is what happens, the aftermath of what happens when somebody does get in trouble and you hear about it. And I even know of personal cases, my wife being able, she's had a patient in the past that's had, really extenuous circumstances to the point that, it was really severe. The FBI was involved, and that was several years ago. But very, 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 very difficult to deal with. Yes.
Yes. Well, when you start talking about the FBI involvement, it's generally related to a predator. That generally is when someone over 18 or over is sharing pictures, or for a predator, potentially even grooming a child or teen to meet them somewhere. Or to send more pictures. And that's a really scary thought, that kids are talking to people online that they don't know who they are. A girl might think this is a 16-year-old boy that's telling her how beautiful she is and how he wants to meet her, and it's really a 60-year-old pedophile.
Yeah, and that terminology I think is called catfishing.
Yes.
where they make a fake profile and
right.
And they're very suave, and because obviously it's an adult, and there are some things that they're saying that might be a little bit more detailed, and they know how to hook emotions, and that's a scary dilemma.
It is a scary dilemma, and we've long known that predators groom their targets, their victims, and they take time to develop the relationship. They don't rush it, but they start gaining confidence and trust of the child or teen, until they're willing to meet them somewhere or send more pictures. And that's where blackmail can come in. And the new term for that is sextortion, extorting sexual pictures or sexting pictures. And there have been some very sad examples of girls that have gotten involved in that and become so depressed that they were suicidal or did, in fact, commit suicide.
Oh, that's something I have heard a lot about, is how this it spreads, and what do I do about it? And there's desperation.
Correct.
And the effects of it, the aftermath, is how can you clean it up? Now, if it were a note circulating around, and then you had the note in your hand and discarded it, it'd be one thing. you're talking about cyberspace. This stuff is floating around, and
Yes.
there's really no way to get rid of it. You know, I've heard of a case where there was some negative information about a family's child, and they wanted it erased. They wanted it like qualsed from the internet, and it was going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, if you could even do it at all.
If you can even do it at all, because it would actually require that person on that end to agree to let it go.
Yes.
You know?
Well, it's public and it's permanent, and that's those are two things that kids need to understand before they make the decision to sext. Is where it might go, how far it might go. Unfortunately, again, kids are naive, and girls who send a picture perhaps to their boyfriend don't think it will ever go farther than that. They trust the boy and they think
Right.
they're in love, and they send a picture and then they break up. And what happens after that? If it was a bad breakup, if there's another girl involved,
Right.
sometimes they can take that picture and send it far and wide. Some of the horrible stories I've heard about were one instance where there was a bad breakup, and the new girlfriend took the picture, had copies of it made at Kinko's, and taped it all over her brother's car.
Oh my gosh.
There have been other examples where people send these images to a girl's pastor, to her mom and dad, to a prospective college, to a sports coach. There are any number of ways to embarrass and humiliate, and that takes this to an entirely different level. That is really sexual harassment or cyberbullying, as
Yes.
we've discussed.
You know, and this even reaches not even the common house, not only the common household, but you hear about this happening in Hollywood as well.
Oh yes,
the Paris Hilton tapes that came out, over a decade ago, and that is a mega family that has. I'm sure they wouldn't want to see their child exploited that way in the name.
Absolutely.
But that's something that affects a lot of people. And you think that at the moment it's harmless. Well, it's my partner, and it'll be just for us. But
Yes.
you can never tell.
No, you can't, and you can't stop somebody from disseminating a picture that they find or obtain. Now, when it's done between consenting adults, it's not illegal. Sexting
Right.
isn't illegal, but one of the catches with teens is that adulthood is marked at the age of 18. So you can have a senior who's 18 years old and potentially sexting with a junior or a sophomore who's younger, and that 18-year-old male could be tried as an adult.
Even though they go to the same school
Correct.
and they eat in the same cafeteria,
Exactly.
but it's that age margin
Yes.
that separates a child from an adult.
Exactly.
And how
the
could you
penalties are
possibly-
much harsher, as we
Wow.
talked
And how
about
could you
earlier.
possibly even think that would be? How could you predict something like that? How could you predict that something so extreme could happen?
Well, I think kids can't. Their brains are too immature, and they certainly don't think it's going to ever happen to them.
Well, how involved do you think parents should be in something like this? When it comes, let's take the example of an older boyfriend or girlfriend dating a younger child. How should they approach their children about the do's and don'ts on things
Well,
like
that
sexting?
probably is, would be handled on an individual basis. But I think that boys need to understand when they turn 18 that there is a difference, that they will be treated differently, that they are now an adult in the eyes of the law. And so they have to be careful about what they do. I think there's some leeway that the legal system affords boyfriends and girlfriends who are a year apart, an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old, or where they aren't subject to as harsh a penalty when it's reciprocal. But that varies, and I think that you have to err on the side of caution.
Yeah. No, and I
very
think
careful.
that. Well, I mean, thinking of my own children, because that's what I do a lot when I do these shows, that I would want to actually tell my son or my daughter, hey, this is what can happen. And even though it's not even on your radar, it's not something that you're concerned about and you're even thinking about. If you come across a picture or somebody sends you a picture and they're older than you or you're older than them, that you can actually get in a lot of trouble for that. Even though you didn't mean to, you didn't ask for it, that's still child pornography. So we have to be able to educate our kids and have the conversation. Be bold enough to as a parent to say something to our kids that these are the warnings, these are the pitfalls, this is what can really happen to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Rusty. And I mean, the consequences are serious. It's not just the legal consequences. It's not it being a misdemeanor or certainly it could be bumped up to a felony if sexual harassment was involved. But the social and emotional consequences are so great. There have been many a girl, as we talked about, that where this has happened to and have become so overwhelmed that they took their life as a result of that. That it was so impossible to see a way out of. And these pictures can follow kids from one school to the next, even if they move. Kids are cruel, and they will call girls a slut or a whore. And unfortunately, boys are more often celebrated when they have
like they're the stud.
Absolutely.
And the girl is the slut.
Absolutely. It's the double standard is alive and well.
It's actually very scary.
Yeah.
We're visiting with Dr. Istre. We're discussing sexting. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll hear more from Dr. Istre when we come back after these messages.
Hi, it's Fisher, the Radio Roots Sleuth, host of Extreme Genes Family History Radio. Every week right here, we bring you the latest on how to dig up your dead, plus amazing stories of discovery and expert guests. Maybe we can help you find who you're looking for.
Tune in to the Extreme Genes radio show hosted by Scott Fisher, Saturday evenings at 6 p.m. on Talk Radio 1190. If you're interested in finding out where you came from, listen to Extreme Genes Radio.
If you're in a car wreck, you are going to need an attorney, especially if it wasn't your fault. You're going to need somebody to deal with the other insurance company to make sure that you get a proper settlement. And like I've said for a decade and a half, unless you do this on a regular basis, you don't know what a proper settlement is. The Frankels, they do. And Frankel & Frankel, they've been doing this for over 2 decades. They've helped thousands of people. Insurance companies, they know about the Frankels. They know that they file cases and go to trial when necessary. Partners Scott, Mark, Gene have all been voted to the best lawyers in Dallas by D Magazine. That's for the last 3 consecutive years. Frankel & Frankel has been voted favorite law firm by the readers of Addison Magazine for the last 5 years consecutively. 1-800-LAWYERS. 1-800-LAWYERS. Write it down, put it in your phone, throw it in the glove box, shove it in your purse. One day you're going to need it. It's the law offices of Frankel & Frankel. Principal office is in Dallas, Texas.
Call 1-800-LAWYERS for personal injury cases. Frankel & Frankel, proud supporters of the Russ Martin Show Listeners Foundation.
An important message from Medicare.
It's Medicare open enrollment now through December 7th.
Time to go online and look at all your Medicare plan choices.
Like prescription drug plans and Medicare Advantage plans from private insurers.
Look for lower costs, more benefits. I'm open to that.
Every year, plans change. So can your health needs.
Open to something better? Start today. Use the tools at Medicare.gov.
Or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Real Texas, real talk. Talk Radio 1190.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hello, we are back. If you're just joining us, we're visiting with Dr. Istre from the Center for Social Success in Dallas, dristre.com. And our topic today is sexting. And before the break, we actually started to get into the social and emotional ramifications of sexting. And you had mentioned not only the legal aspects of this, but emotionally how it can affect somebody. And you started to discuss things like suicide, self-harm. Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. It certainly has a devastating impact on the person whose picture has gone viral. And that's what we're really talking about is when an image is distributed widely and it's impossible to get back and everybody seems to know about it. The social and emotional impact is not even just on the girl or the the boy that are involved specifically, but on their family, on their friends. They can be outcast. They can have consequences at school where they can be taken off teams. When they apply to colleges look at their online profile, and if anything like this comes up, they can be denied access to college. They can lose scholarships.
And that really does happen.
Yes, it does.
You remember the white supremacist marches that they had a few months ago, and how they were actually hunting down these people, and they were getting fired from their jobs, and they found them on social media, and they found their faces, facial recognition. So the actions you take it really can have long-lasting effects.
Long-term effects. And kids are notorious for not thinking about the future, for living very much in the here and now, and for thinking things like that will never happen to them.
That's
so,
it. The immortality of being a teen.
Yes, of course. And,
me.
we can talk about legal consequences, but it's illegal to drink underage. It's illegal to smoke marijuana. And
right.
How many kids still do that?
Oh, it's taboo. I mean, it's like you show up with beer at a party in high school and you're like, whoa, look at how cool that guy is.
Absolutely.
And, and so you're told not to do something. And I think the natural inclination, chaos theory, is to go and seek it out and see what happens.
Yes.
Take those risks.
That's exactly right. So, but I think it hits home more to kids to think about their reputation and the impact on their families or on something they're currently interested in, a sport that they're striving to get a scholarship in. Those things are more here and now.
Right.
And I think when they learn about the wide spread impact this can have, it is more of a deterrent to them.
Absolutely. I was talking to my son and I went out to a ranch. We have a ranch out in Knickerbocker. You know this. And I was talking to the landowner, and right now the bucks are in rut. There's one time a year that deer go into a reproductive state, and the male buck metamorphosizes. He has so much hormones. He has these little, on the inside of their hocks, on the knees, they have these little black pads, and they secrete hormones like pheromones. Their muscles increase in their neck 3 times the size. And usually you can't get close to a deer. You can't get close to these animals, and you can see pictures of them on a game camera. But this is the one time of year where they're so love struck and there's so much going on that he was saying that he went out to go rake some leaves, and this doe came right up to him like a dog. And then all of a sudden, the buck came up to him and within arm's distance, and they were using him and running around. And so there were all these things happening in the buck's body that was making them not even afraid of the presence of a person. And I'm wondering how, with kids, this hormonal change that happens in their body, and the accessibility of how this phone and the internet can bring things to them, how much they really don't think about this because they're in such a hormonal charge that they're striving towards an impulse.
Sure. Well, we're all mammals, aren't we?
Yeah.
Animals and humans alike. And
right.
Certainly there's a strong sexual drive, and we know teens are just coming of age with hormones. And I think that's why for a long time we've known that getting young males to engage in sports or other activities where they can dissipate some of that energy and drive is a good thing. And the same is true, for girls as well. But yes, I think kids are naturally drawn and curious about sex, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it.
It's just that the way they're doing it is can have devastating consequences. And that's what we as adults want to protect them from, are these lifelong severe consequences that an act like sending a nude picture
it
can
takes
have.
Just one thoughtless text or one thoughtless request or one thoughtless action, and you can't take it back.
That's right.
That's scary. I mean, and I think that when I'm thinking about my own kids, that I think it's important that we try to really educate our kids. We need to get in there and really talk about these things. Talk about the emotional consequences. Talk about how this can really affect their lives. And I keep going back to that because the suicide rates, the mistakes, and you deal with the consequences after the fact, right?
Yes.
And I think that's something that's no way to learn. That's the school of hard knocks, right? So this is really a topic that has to be pounded into your children. Would you say?
Well, I don't know about pounded just because I think they would react to that in a negative way.
And they would eek and gross and like, why are we discussing this?
Yeah.
But we really do have to have that conversation.
Well, we do have to have that conversation. You're right about that. And we have to have it in a way that we're not overly emotional and we're not overly judgmental so that kids will talk. Otherwise, they're going to shut down if they perceive that you're going to react negatively or get very upset or, like you said earlier, maybe ground them or take things away. They're not going to talk to us about what's going on. So in order to leave that door open, we have to present them with information in a very factual way that's non-judgmental and help them to arrive at those conclusions without us having to pound it into them that they come to that conclusion.
And
themselves.
how much information is too much information?
Well, that's a great question. You know, with sex ed, we have always said only answer the question that they ask.
Right,
you don't have to have the whole birds and bees talk when, a child asks you one specific question. But I think with sexting, we do need to talk about the consequences. We need to outline the legal, social, emotional, education and career, the cyberbullying potential, online predator potential. That's just part of the educational process.
And it's pretty vast.
Yes.
And I think that looking at this, pornography really does play a big part in this.
Oh, that's
the sexualization of our entire industry, the entire sex industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they have billions and billions of dollars at stake, and it's easy for them. I was having a conversation the other day, and I think even you and I were talking about this earlier. It's such a passive industry because they have these little robots that will go and feed into a video game link that you're online with, or it'll flash across your screen if you're just, checking out your social media. Or if you're playing these little online games, how they have advertisement breaks, they'll sneak something into that.
Absolutely.
And
kids, even if they don't seek out porn, about once a month will just accidentally come across it through no intention of their own. Porn has really become a part of the mainstream popular culture, and it's now, like you said, $1 billion industry. It's $10 to $14 billion a year, and that exceeds professional football, baseball, and basketball combined.
Oh, wow.
One of the other things that I think is particularly interesting is that in the spring of 2016, Playboy stopped publishing its nude photos because they could no longer compete with the net.
Wow.
That the statement from one of their CEOs was, "You're now one click away from every sex act imaginable." So a centerfold can no longer compete.
They can't compete with like a paper copy that you have to be old enough to buy behind the counter at a 7-Eleven. And
one
there's
click away.
Yeah, and there's no police on this. There's no way to monitor that.
And part of the scarier part of porn is that porn is becoming increasingly aggressive and hardcore. And there's a lot of violence and rape and humiliation involved in porn. So what are kids learning from this? There has one of leading psychologists, Dr. Philip Zimbardo, did a TED Talk about how young men's brains are being digitally rewired due to excessive porn viewing and video gaming. And this just makes maintaining real-life relationships extremely hard and not helping our kids to navigate that whole notion of committed relationships when they see porn and it's highly stimulating and variable and increasingly aggressive and hardcore. Then, regular relationships seem kind of boring.
And what do we do? Like, okay, here we are, and let's say that it's a little boy and a little girl, and I like you, and okay, what am I supposed to do now? And so the only point of reference, if a child has been exposed to these things, would be to kind of start maybe moving in the direction of carrying out some of these acts that they've seen.
Yeah. And other research out of Cambridge University has shown that males who frequently masturbate and are addicted to porn have a higher rate of erectile dysfunction. That's a new thing in our society. What happens is it changes the reward center of the brain. It's kind of like a drug addict. You need ever more stimulation to get the same rush and quiet the craving. So boys and men can become so used to seeing this graphic sex laced with aggression and sadomasochism that normal sex no longer excites them. And a little blue pill won't help that. Right. That's changing the dopamine levels in our brain to this highly exciting, changeable graphic mode that is required in order to get that high. So I think that certainly is an important thing for teenage boys to understand, is that there are truly negative side effects to porn viewing, and porn addiction is becoming increasingly prevalent in our society because it is so easy and it's so exciting. Even our video games are, like you said, can be laced with so much porn. Boys can hire a prostitute in some of the games. The girls are scantily clothed, and there's a lot of cleavage being shown. It permeates our culture, so it makes kids think that this is what they should be doing.
Absolutely.
That this is normal.
Yeah, and it's a very passive approach. You're not even looking for it, and it sneaks in. We're visiting with Dr. Istre. We're discussing sexting. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll hear more from Dr. Istre on our last segment, and then we will go into podcast mode. We'll be back right after these messages.
Guns mean different things to different people. For some, when they think guns, they think crime. For others, guns mean hunting, recreational shooting, or competition. Many men and women see guns as the key to protecting their families. Hi, I'm Tom Gresham, host of Gun Talk. No matter how you feel about guns, you now have a place to talk about it. Join me Sundays, 1 to 4 p.m. on Talk Radio 1190.
When it comes to the holidays, the hustle and bustle doesn't stop. Well, unless your car breaks down. Whatever this season brings, it helps to have Hum by Verizon. Hum is the connected car system that assists and empowers drivers. Now you can check your car's health from your phone, get help if you're stuck on the side of the road, and if Hum detects a crash, it can automatically notify emergency services. It's a smart way to stay informed about your car and keep your family safer on the road. This holiday season, get Hum and get where you're going. Visit hum.com or your local Verizon store for special holiday savings.
What makes a holiday card unforgettable? Personality. And no one makes it easier or more affordable to create a holiday card full of personality than Vistaprint. Right now, get 60% off all custom holiday cards. That means 30 cards start at less than $12. With hundreds of stunning designs, your personality will shine through with every card you send. Just go to Vistaprint.com today and enter the promo code RADIO to get 60% off all custom holiday cards. That's Vistaprint.com, promo code RADIO.
Hi, this is Rodney Anderson with Supreme Lending. A lot of homeowners in today's market are looking to take equity out of their home, and most lenders are quoting 30, 60, or even 90 days to get the job done. Our goal is to close your loan in 15 days. Whether you're trying to take cash out to pay off credit card debts, send the kids to college, or do home improvements, we are here to help. Call my office right now at 1-800-EXPRESS, or you can always go to rodneyanderson.com. With over 25 years and a stellar team, we make it a painless and hassle-free experience. Our office is open 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 to 1 p.m. on Saturday. That's right, 6 days a week. What bank do you know that's open 6 days a week? Pick up the phone and call me right now at 1-800-EXPRESS, or you can always apply online at rodneyanderson.com.
Supreme Lending is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 2129, MLO 196730, 4975 Preston Park Boulevard, Suite 800, Plano, Texas 75093. Texas SML Mortgage Banker Registration. Residential Mortgage Loan Originator.
Life happens. With ADT, you can feel safe with an ADT starter kit professionally installed for only $49. Call today and install an ADT starter kit that includes security panel, keypad, key fob, entry and motion sensors, and for a limited time, get a camera included and installed at no additional cost. That's a $449 value installed for just $49.
Requires 36-month monitoring contract, QSB, and EasyPay. Activation early term fees may apply. Certain marks excluded. License available at ADT.com, Florida EF001121, Louisiana F1639.
Hey everybody, I'm Eric Church, asking you to join me in the fight against leukemia, cancer, and AIDS through the TJ Martell Foundation. Your support helps facilitate cutting-edge research that will lead to more effective treatments and save more lives. Visit tjmartell.org to learn about music's promise for a cure.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, we're visiting with Dr. Susan Istre from the Center for Social Success in Dallas, Texas. DrIstre.com, I-S-T-R-E. Like history without the H. That's how my wife was. So before we left on the break, we actually started to really get into how the pornography industry has an effect on it can actually sneak into our lives. It can sneak into these kids' lives just playing a simple video game and what we're up against. So what do we as parents actually, what can we do about this? What is it that we can actually say? What are the steps that we can take? And let's see what Dr. Istre has to say about this.
Well, I think you're right when you talk about how insidious porn is in our culture. And we haven't even mentioned song lyrics and TV ads and magazines and pop stars. Our whole culture has become sexualized. So I know that parents often feel overwhelmed with this. How do you stand up to such widespread influences on your kids? And I certainly, you got to talk to your family about your moral values and beliefs, but we all know that you can't just lecture that. You have to live it. You have to model that behavior. You have to be able, like you said earlier, not to shy away from tough topics, to talk about sexuality and pornography and peer pressure. But parents also have to get involved with monitoring their kids, reviewing games before they buy them, monitoring their cell phone use and their computer use, because kids are not mature enough to do that for themselves. And left alone, they'd be on the screen 24/7.
Right. And just like they would choose to have candy for dinner.
Yeah.
And you don't leave it up to a child. You know, a mom made the comment the other day that even the Star Wars series have just become so dark, and how there's so much, like the escalation of dark material, how, you know, there's horror and violence, and there's no real sexual acts in Star Wars, but I mean, there's a lot of things that are out there on television, movies that we see that really portray this. So even that is an exploitation.
Well, sure. And look at what's happening today in this day and age with all of the sexual harassment claims against powerful men in Hollywood and in the media. I think that we are finally at the point where the pendulum has swung so far that people are saying enough is enough. And women are speaking out, sometimes after 20 years of silence. But there's power in numbers, and we're finding out that there's been a tremendous amount of abuse of power and sexual encroachment and sexual harassment. And so it points out to me the need to teach our boys to become better men.
Absolutely.
To help them to not only know how to respect women, but to form meaningful relationships. And for girls, not to objectify themselves, not to buy in to the cultures, what the culture is selling about, the way you dress, the way you think, the way you have to, have sex with.
Right. Yeah. The expectation.
Yes.
The trend these days are that there was a point when I was growing up that boys were chasing the girls, and that's like historically how it's been. But now, these days, it's equal. It's a two-way street, that there are females that just that pursue boys just as much as they do, boys chasing girls. So yeah, I mean, what changed there, and how can we actually, what can we do to really rectify this?
Kids have to think well enough of themselves not to believe that they're only important because of a body part or a sexual function. And so that starts real early. Self-esteem and valuing kids and encouraging them to find something they're good at, find a passion, and find something to be involved in. I think that's a good counterweight to this only viewing yourself in very narrow terms. But it's still tough when you see these models that are anorexic and skimpy clothing and everything that you see on TV and in magazines implies that sex is the driving force in relationships.
And buy this perfume, and this is the way you're supposed to act on a beach. And you're all sprawled out. So, yes, absolutely. Did you ever watch that movie, Men in Black 2? Mm-hmm. When the snake-like, creature invades Earth, and he was taking a human form, and it took the form of like this half clanky naked model, And he goes, yeah, this species is just, they're turned on by mammary glands. And so that's that's the form that it shows. But it's kind of true. I mean, it's like there's so much of an emphasis on body parts.
Yes.
That young girls need to learn to develop their personalities. They need to learn that in every stage of their life, start to really build and work on interpersonal skills.
Certainly, boys and girls alike.
You know, I recall this one case where there was a boy, and he was kind of courting a girl, and he asked her through text, "Will you go with me?" Which is like asking her to be, exclusive with him. And he had this amazing personality on text. But then whenever he'd get close to her, he would just say hi and just kind of walk next to her, and they wouldn't really say anything, and just kind of like walk beside each other. And then they'd say, "Okay, have a good day, see ya." And then they'd leave, and then here comes the text swarming in with like the emojis and "Oh yeah, you look so great," and saying all these things that he really should have been practicing saying, like to enter in her presence.
Yes.
And I think really empowering these kids to be able to, start using more vocalization. Hey, how are you? You having a nice day? And just basic conversation could really start a trend, a rift, and helping them to know that what you're dealing with is not a pretty girl with pretty hair with body parts or a masculine boy with muscles, but you're dealing with an interesting person they're funny and they have likes and dislikes, and it's something I think we really need to spend more time teaching our kids and getting back to some of those basics.
Well, absolutely. And you're talking about social skills. And we really have seen a decline in social skills with the advent of cell phones and texting and emailing. It's so curious to me to see a group of teenagers who are together, but all looking at their screen, their phones, and not interacting with each other, much like what you just described. It's almost like toddler parallel play. They're engaged in their own world. They're together, and they're doing similar things, but they're not interacting.
They're not interacting. You can't pick up on the nuances of facial gestures,
correct,
maintaining eye contact, reading body language. So there is an art to that.
Missing all of
that.
And they're also misinterpreting cues. You sometimes you don't know what a person means by a text, or you might misinterpret it and think they mean something that they don't.
Yeah, or the text comes out in a way that seems like cold, off-putting, and not interested, when in actuality it is. And is that why they developed the emojis? Now, the new iPhone has like the poop emoji that will follow your face, and it'll smile and stick its tongue out, so you can animate it. But why aren't we spending more time actually just doing that one-on-one?
We absolutely need to, because otherwise, we leave kids to their own resources. How to connect with each other. They're doing what they see on TV, or they're doing what they see in the pornography industry, or everybody's doing it. So we're not counteracting that. It's very hard when you're dealing with behavior issues. You can't just tell a kid what not to do. You have to tell them what to do. And I think that's what you're saying, is we need to, if we're going to tell them not to sex, then what should they be doing?
Exactly.
Instead of that?
Replace it with something that they should do.
It's more healthy.
And in a direction they can go in and start to explore. And the other thing that's missing from this element, and if a child is in a relationship, is that there's a whole mystery of the other person. What is this person like? That's the love factor. The days that you spend around like on cloud nine thinking about this person that you're starting to date, and I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what they're like in this situation. That's love, and that's the excitement of getting to know somebody.
Yes.
So when you cut corners and you go directly into physical interaction, I mean, it's disconnected. I mean, it seems like it'd be really cold, disconnected, and impersonal.
Absolutely.
And sad. Sad and really meaningless.
Well, it's sad, and you look at our society as a whole, that 1 in every 2 marriages ends in divorce. So we're not doing a very good job at all of helping people to know how to choose a spouse and form a relationship and make a commitment and resolve problems and stay in the relationship. This is kind of a throwaway world. If it doesn't go exactly like you think it should, then get a divorce or don't get married at all. And I think it's really threatening the institution of marriage. Kids are losing faith that it is something that is possible.
And unimportant. It's threatening. I think it's threatening us as a species. It's our humanity. And it's that one terminology. It's that one thing that was said on a movie called Powder, when the guy says, "Is our technology surpassing our humanity when our humanity should be surpassing our technology. And it's true. It's true because we're missing something here. We need to get back to some basics. We need to get back to the social skills, I think, starting at an early age.
Absolutely.
The hellos, the how are you, the hey, would you like to play, and just the simple interactions, the nuances that develop.
And kids won't do that if they're glued to their phones 24/7. It won't happen. So parents have to limit phone and computer use, and they have to require that a kid or a teen be involved with the family, be involved in outside activities, get enough sleep, take care of themselves in other ways than this obsession with their screens.
Absolutely. I think that being said is a good point for us to actually start with our podcast after this series. We have about a minute and 20 seconds left. I do want to spend some time talking about your center. And how can people find you?
Well, the Center for Social Success has been around for a lot of years, about 20 years. And I am the director of that center, but I employ 8 or 9 therapists, and they're all specialists in different areas. So if someone is interested in getting help for their young child, we have therapists that are specialized in play therapy. If they have middle-aged or teen children, or if they need help maritally or with behavior management, with dealing with some of these tough issues, we do have specialists in all those areas. So if they'd like to learn more about us, certainly look us up at www.dristre.com, and I think they'll see the variety of services that we have to offer.
And also, if there's a private institution, private schools, churches that would like to hear more about this topic of sexting, and even getting into some instructionals with teachers and the students, you bring in your crew of counselors, and you educate the staff and the children. You talk to them. So that in itself is starting a rift, and it's very hopeful.
Yeah.
Dr. Istre, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. If you have any questions or you'd like to hear more information, please visit our website or follow us on Twitter at the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy, the iHeartRadio, Talk Radio 1190, the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, and our Facebook. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.